Okay, today we're going to fix and diagnose two problems on a Toro Dingo TX420 for the loader arm control valve. There's two things that are wrong with it. First off, that there's a lot of slop in the control valve. Not a really big deal, but that's the easy fix. But the bigger problem is it's leaking out of the bottom, right at the top of the valve, where the actual joystick sits on the valve. When you engage the joystick, moving your arms up and down and dumping your bucket or what have you, it starts to leak fluid. So we're going to have to figure this one out. First thing we're going to do is take off that panel. It's 4 bolts right there that hold it on. Second thing we're going to do is remove this bolt, or this boot right here. Usually there's a zip tie here and then a zip tie at the bottom. You're going to have to cut off, and then you're going to take that boot and then come straight up to expose all the linkage underneath. So with the boot off, you can see that the plate at the bottom has got a lot of play in it, and what you can't see is there's 2 holes that are on the other side of this plate right here, and those small bolts have come loose. So what I'm going to have to do is take the actual linkage off the handle part to expose the top of this plate right here. So how to do that is go ahead and take this. It's a 13 millimeter. Hold your 13 millimeter right here and 13 here, and take that nut off, take that nut off, and then at the back there's another nut back here that needs to come off. And then you just kind of slip this out of the holders and up out of the way to expose everything. Now if yours plate is not moving right here and everything, and that's pretty firm, but these nuts are loose right here, all you have to do is tighten those up, and that'll get the slop out of your joystick if your plate is adhered correctly. So if you're just trying to get slop out, that's all you have to do if those nuts have come loose. But since this has a leak, I'm going to have to pull this handle all the way off. So now we're exposed, so we can see that the 2 problem little bolts are here. These are Allen heads. So what I'm going to do is pull both of these Allen heads out, or at least one by one, and I'm going to put some Loctite in the hole on the bolt and lock it down, both of them, as hard as I can, so there's no movement in that. And then I'm hoping that's going to fix the leaking problem. If that doesn't fix it, that means I have to pull this plate, this metal plate under here, all the way off, and there's a gasket underneath there, and then 2 seals that would have to be replaced. But we are going to do this tightening first and then test it and see if it works. So after testing, we still had a leak, so I'm going to have to, it means the seal's damaged underneath this plate, so I'm going to have to redo the O-rings. So take the 2 little Allen head bolts out here, and then remove this plate. And then there's 2 other Allens back here. Take those out and remove that. You see there's a gasket on the back of that. And that exposes the top of the valve right there. And these 2 things are going to be the problem. There's O-rings and these gold washer seals right here. And one of the O-rings is gone. That's where the leak is originally from. And here's what they look like new. You see the O-rings right there. So how to get these out is we'll be extremely careful. And it's going to be messy. But I'm going to turn the machine on, and the hydraulic pressure hopefully will push the rings up enough to where I can get a little screwdriver in there and to hold it when it pops up. As soon as it pops up, turn the machine off so fluid doesn't go everywhere, and then remove it, and hopefully remove that one too when the hydraulic fluid pushes it up. And then after the 2 are removed, I'm going to take the new seals like so. I'm going to oil the O-ring around them, and then I'm going to put them on just like that, and then push them down so that they're flush with the top of the valve right here to reseal it. And then put everything back on, including the silver. I'm going to put this gasket on too. I'm going to redo a new gasket on the bottom of this plate, and then just put everything back on the way it is. And when you get to putting your bolts back in, use Loctite and lock them down as well as you can, and let the Loctite cure before you use it, so you get that seal. Yeah, we got everything back on and did a test for about 10 minutes running it, and the seal is good, no more leaks. Forgot to tell you, or one thing to keep in mind is when you're putting these new seals on, I use a oversized ratchet head to put on top of it when you put it over the spool, and hammer down lightly so it goes on straight. You don't want it to get cockeyed in there. And make sure that the O-ring on these things doesn't get caught on the lip of the valve. Just make sure that the O-ring goes all the way in and that it's flushed out there. And then, you know, you got both of those on. Then you put your new green gasket that's under here, put your cap back on, put your this mount back on, tighten the 4 bolts down, put your handle back on. And in here you want to add a bunch of grease. Just shoot grease all up in here before you put the boot on. Put your boot on and you are done.